Welcome to Sex in Toronto City, a podcast where we explore the modern dating world and offer advice to help you find love and make meaningful connections out there. As a single mom, immigrant, and divorcee, I know firsthand how challenging the dating scene can be. But despite the heartbreaks and pain I have experienced, I'm determined to find love again. Join me and my guests as we share our experiences and offer insights and tips to help you navigate in the dating world. Whether you are a seasoned pro or a complete newcomer, I am here to help you find love and make connections. I am your host, Beatriz Vieira, and I can't wait to have you along for the journey. Thanks for being here. I had a other in Portuguese actually episode that talks about the responsibility of being a parent. It's so huge, so
Yeah.
huge. So whatever you are out there in your 20s, listen to this and you think you want to be a parent, think and ask a question. What kind of parent you want to be? What are you going to be giving? That like read about the trauma before, like there's a
Yeah.
preparation. Kids doesn't come with
A
uh
manual.
manual, but we can prepare.
Yeah.
Hannah, you talk about your parents, and we know your mom was not in the picture, but your father was very present. Doesn't he
hmm
know that you have gone through this path?
hmm Yep.
How he
Yep.
takes that? How do you
Yeah. So
like
there was there
extended
was
families that support, no support, criticism?
yeah. So I would say I have a what you would probably call a small family. Like it was my dad, I have my mom. On my dad's side of things, it was really just my grandma and grandpa. I have a couple of cousins, I think, but like they were never close. We never hung out. Like they were either far away or just not connected. And then on my mom's side of things, I have one grandma and then family that lived out of state that I also didn't grow up with or grow up knowing. And so it was really like dad, sister, grandparents. That's it. And so I remember, this is funny, when I was 16, 17, doing those things like I talked about in the last episode, behind the scenes, like nobody was supposed to know about that. I was very much under the radar as much as possible. Nobody knew besides me and like anyone that I told in my own circle. It wasn't anything to do with my family. But when I turned 19 and I started actually working at the strip club, I had moved out of my boyfriend's house and somewhere else. The first boyfriend finally broke up with him, started at the strip club. And then I lived with my dad briefly for like a month or so, just enough to like make enough money so that I could have enough money to go rent my own place from there. And so I remember I started coming home with a bunch of shit. I would come home with like hundreds of dollars of groceries, new bedding for my bed, like all kinds of stuff that was just like, where is this coming from? And so I had always said things jokingly, but not jokingly to my dad growing up of like, I can't wait to be a stripper. I can't wait to, and he would always be like, shut the fuck up. Like, stop saying shit like that and just kind of write it off and tell me how bad of an idea it was. And then, which I didn't take seriously. And then at this time, I was coming home with money and a lot of things. And he came to me in the kitchen one day and he was super, super like aggressive about it and was like, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Where are you getting all this money from? And I was so offended in the moment because what he said was not the truth at the time, but it was not far from the truth. He was like, you selling your fucking ass? And those words. And I was like, what the fuck? No. And I was all defensive because I had had one of those experiences in the past when I was 16, but he didn't know that. And I was just so, so defensive about it because I truly wanted to believe at that time that stripping and the rest of sex work was different. I wanted to believe that it's not. And so he was like, you need to fucking tell me or you can get your shit and get out. And so it was like a threat of like, you can stay here and be honest or not. And I was like, fine, I'll tell you, and I'm not going to talk about it. And I told him, I've been working at Deja Vu and blah, 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 this place for the last like 3 weeks. And this is how much money I'm making. And that's it. And he just looked at me. And later I could reflect on it and see like how hurt he was at this information. But he said, you're a fucking dumbass, and left, slammed the front door, didn't talk to me for like 3 days. And rent was like coming. And then he came back around a few days later and again, very aggressive and not direct, but kind of too direct all at the same time. he was like, so if you're making all this money, like you need to fucking contribute. And this guy hasn't paid me for this job. And like, again, in some sort of high stress state for him at that time. And so I was just like, whatever, wrote off the conversation. And then the next day when he was at work, rent was like $1,600, I think at the time. I put $1,600 worth of cash under his door and texted him and said, the rent's under your door. And from that day on, he never mentioned it again. Like he never mentioned it as a problem ever again, because I think he dissociated in his own experience as a parent, knowing that he didn't enjoy or like or support what I was doing at all. But from an entrepreneur lens, he could respect my like hustle about it, I guess. He could respect my mindset about it, because I was always very clean with what I did. Like I said, it was very much transactional, start to finish. And so he, I think, could acknowledge, and that's how he justified it in his own mind, to be accepting enough. He could acknowledge that I was doing something for myself, I guess. I was like making my own money. I was, doing my own thing. And I was not working somewhere that I hated for somebody else's dream. And that would have been, I think, worse for him, ironically. And so, yeah, that was like the one conversation we ever had about it that was negative. And then from that point on, it was just open. I was just like years later, I'd be on the phone with him. He'd be like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to Vegas this weekend. Some guy's flying me there. I'm doing this thing for this weekend. I'm going to have this much money. He'd be like, oh, okay. Well, text me when you get there. Like he wasn't approving, but he was not actively disapproving. And so it was just kind of lukewarm. And then he would say things over the years of like trying to encourage me to like, you need to be doing something else. Like, you're doing all this shit. You're running a business basically, but like, why are you doing this? Like you can do so much better. You need to be doing so much better. So he always kind of tried to stay in the positive with it. And then I remember my grandpa, I was 16, 17. This was, you know what? I remember now. I had done the secret house stripping and no one knew about it, but I knew about it. And I couldn't wait to be able to legally go to the strip club. And then I was willing to out myself about it. I was sitting at the dinner table and I was like, you know what? I think I want to be a stripper, and just to test the waters. And my grandpa, who was always like the most like unconditionally loving man, the one source of that for me my whole life, he was like, well, it's as good a job as any. And that was all he ever said about it. And that was it. And then last piece here is, well, I guess two. My mom knew about it and was just always like interested in how much money I made and like, oh, cool, like awesome. And she didn't really ever like disapprove or approve or like say anything specific about it. And I think now I can see it. She had her own shame and stuff about it because of how she had played into that industry in the past and kind of set the tone for me maybe. And so that was where she was at with it. And then my grandma on her side, she lived in Reno, out of state for me. And I would go there and I would work at the strip clubs there and I would stay at her house. And she just is the most innocent, like earth angel ever, never had a sip of alcohol, never done drugs, doesn't cuss, like the most like pure person you've ever met. And she was like, have fun dancing tonight, sweetie. When I would leave at 7 o'clock at night and not get home till 6 a.m. the next day. And she'd be like, did you make a lot of money? Like, did you have fun? And so for her, she just didn't know. It just didn't click. But yeah, so generally I was supported, I would say, but not that that's necessarily a positive.
Yeah. I feel like because they knew they couldn't contribute to support you financially, I think there is a big shame that they care. And what else they can do is just to kind of like say, well, I can change the way that she chose to live her life. So might as well just love her unconditionally and be there to support her whenever she needs me.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Which brings me to another anonymous question that says, how did you gain confidence and overcome your insecurities sufficient to exit the sex trade business?
Well, it was definitely like the tried and true cliche, like the rain before the rainbow sort of thing, the breakdown before the breakthrough. Like, it was not a moment when I woke up and was like, you know what, I'm confident enough to leave now. It was like, wow, I see how destructive this has been for myself. I see how much brokenness is inside of me for the first time. I can see it. And so I was devastated by my own choices. And then that, like, opened the door for me to start feeling everything that needed to be felt. And then that created the space for me to start to heal all of those things. And then slowly but surely, I had the awareness mentally that this is something I need to stop doing at this point, because I knew it was impacting me so negatively, and I could see it more clearly. And then slowly that kind of tipped the scale the other direction as I really invested in my own work. Like, in the last 6 years, I've invested over like $100,000 in myself, as far as personal development and coaching programs and healing and spiritual stuff, and like all of it, retreats, like everything. And so I was doing as much as I could to like excavate all of those beliefs, all of the pain, all of the trauma that allowed me to be in that industry, so that I could get out of it, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to mentally get out of it. Like, I couldn't just say, oh, this is a bad idea, and then sufficiently, like, I like that word in that question, it wasn't sufficient for me to just know it was wrong. I needed to be in alignment on all levels, mind, body, spirit, everything, that this is wrong for me now. And so all the beliefs, all the stuff deep down that kept me there, I had to really just dig out, feel, and like obliterate, so that I could replace them with what I did want. And it was a long, slow process, but eventually then it's like, oh yeah, overnight success. Now I wake up one day and it's like, wow, how did I ever do that? How did I ever make those choices? You know, someone couldn't give me $1 million to do that right now, because I'm so grounded in my self-worth now that I can make $1 million in my life. And it's not about, it's not going to be anything about me sacrificing myself or doing something I don't want to do, you know? And so like, that is the major turnaround.
Did you like have this? I think it's interesting, because there is someone that wanted to know the most expensive gift that you ever had.
Yeah. So, well, gift or cash, because those are different.
Let's do both.
Okay. So, I had somebody buy me a car, like a brand new car at the time. I think it was like a $22,000 purchase. And so that was the biggest gift, I would say. And then multiple occasions, I had somebody give me $5,000 at a time. And that was for like a couple of hours of like hanging out, and we didn't even have sex. And so that was the most cash in one time. And then the biggest like gift was a car.
Okay, so now I it kind of conflicts here as I'm listening to you saying that, because when a girl date a guy, okay, and they are dating, and there's no transaction sexually, like it's just like they're dating for love and find, you know, if they can be a full long-term part in life. Why does guys don't do that for the girlfriends they have? Why, like, I think my real question is like, why men is more inclined and easy to gift and give money to a person that they are paying for their time to fake it, when they can actually be in a relationship with someone that's gonna really love them and accept them and be there for them and whatever, and have this connection. Why do you think this is like, because there's a conflict there?
Yeah, I think it's quite literally because it's a completely different dynamic. And it's like, the thing that's coming to mind to relate it to is like, somebody might leave a $20 tip on the table at a steakhouse, or more than that at a steakhouse, because they are paying for the convenience of it. They're paying for the transaction. They're being served. It's a one-way experience. You know, the person sitting at the table isn't expected to go wash the dishes afterwards. The person at the table doesn't have to cook the steak. They just have to place the order. They just have to show up. They're just doing their very minimal part, and really their part is to pay. And then the waitress, the cooks, all the other people, they're going to do all the service that they're paying for, versus a guy is never going to leave a $20 tip on the table for his wife after she cooks him dinner, you know, because the motive is completely different. She's not cooking him dinner because she's in service to him in that same way. She's cooking him dinner because they're both going to eat dinner. They're going to sit down at the table and they're going to eat dinner together. He worked all day. Maybe she didn't, like, you know, whatever. And so I think you're talking more about like dynamics where it's not the most traditional household where it's like he's doing all the work for money and she's doing the household, because that is different. But you're talking about where it's like a shared household, like you guys are both working, you're both putting in this effort. Like, why is he not helping her more?
Or even like in the beginning, no, Hannah, like for example, let's, because there's a lot of single moms out there nowadays. And if a guy starts to just date, they are not living together, and you know she cannot meet him because she's struggling with working 2 jobs, and she's struggling to pay the rent, and she's like, sorry, I cannot meet you this weekend because I'm working this job, and then I'm doing this, I'm doing that, like, and the guy has more money. Why the guy doesn't say, okay, hold on, I wanted to be with this woman, she's going through a lot of stress, and I love her, I'm gonna support her here, I'm gonna get out of this second job, I'm be spending more time with me. Like, why man doesn't think like that? Because I don't see a lot of men out there that think like that when they're with somebody.
I think that they do. I think that it comes down to what is their emotional investment, and what is their desire with that person. You know, if they're really truly emotionally invested in the relationship and they see it as long-term, or they see this person as someone they want to spend their life with, or at least a long time with, and they are coming from a place of true generosity where like they don't have any sort of agenda tied to the gift of whatever that would be, whether it's hiring a babysitter or like, you know, you don't have to work overtime this weekend, I'll help you with rent, I'll give you a couple $100, I'll help you with rent, whatever it is. It needs, in order for that to be the case, like genuinely, I think it just needs to be very, very clean energy where there's no transaction aspect to it. It's not like, oh, he's helping me with this, and so that's why I'm going to treat him this way. Because then it's just circling back to the societal conditioning around like give and take, men and women with different powers to give each other, you know? And so I think that it's a matter of the man deciding that this is someone he's serious about, and then discerning in himself of like, what are my personal boundaries with finances? Do I have money to give? Do I not have money to give? And realizing that at that point it's coming from like they're seeing each other as a team, and so it's like they're both contributing in their own ways to the team, and it's not necessarily one helping the other like it would be in a paid transaction.
I absolutely agree with that. And I like, because sometimes I have this more masculine energy in me because I'm the provider in my household, right? I am the one run the show here, and I'm in my head, I'm like, if I'm gonna date a man and he's gonna be like, oh, I want to spend time with you, but I am working and I'm doing all these things, like, you're gonna need to wait. And in my head, that's why maybe sometimes it penalizes a lot of relationships out there, is because the partner that they are with doesn't take them seriously to contribute and be a team and say, hey, I'm gonna leave some stress out of your shoulder, you know? Or, oh, I have to do, like, sometimes it's so simple, like I have to do laundry, I have to do, you know what, I'm going to be paid for you, have a maid come to your house once a week, and then you can spend time with me. There's little things that I feel like men can contribute for them to have a better relationship, because back then, woman was at home providing service, providing like taking out the stress. But now in society, woman has to work, woman has to be looking always beautiful, has all this makeup and stuff, and like there's so much stress in the shoulder of a woman. We have to pay the bills equally, we have to wake up at 6:30. I wake up 5:30 in the morning to be out of the house at 6:30. So when I think about it, to put a man beside me, this man has to be like the man. He has to carry this huge masculine energy where he feels like, she's a woman, I don't want her to have so much on her plate the way it is, because, you know, and I'm okay to contribute. Like, this is my mentality. Like, I feel like we have to contribute, we have to do, but I don't want to live like a man.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be in my full feminine energy, and I'm not right now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I wanted to clarify that with you. And to wrap it up, this episode with you, I wanted to ask you if you could give an advice for any girl out there that is considering to sell their body because they really struggle, because they are single moms, or they don't have anybody, they're out of country. Like, I'm trying to like put in a mind where a girl is somewhere out in the country, she doesn't know anybody, she moved to America, she moved to the United States, she moved to England, she moved to Curacao, or all my listeners where they're from, and she's like, oh my gosh, I have no family friends here, I have no support, what am I going to do? First thing they think is to sell their body.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them as the best piece of advice you could give?
Yeah, is to do better. Don't sell yourself short, that your mind and your like mental efforts are so invaluable or so like far-fetched that you would have to resort to your body as the thing to lead with. Like, you could literally start a business picking up fucking dog shit, which I'm thinking with this
Yeah,
dog
I'm
climbing
just
on the
looking.
couch behind me. I know I don't know what she's doing, pulling the blanket out the couch. So it's like, you could literally start a business picking up dog shit. You could go knock on everybody's door in your brand new neighborhood. You don't know anybody and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. Here's my flyer. I'm picking up dog poop in your yard for $20 a week. Like, would you like to sign up? And understand that that's going to come with some rejection, which is fine, because every single no gets you closer to a yes. And it's like understanding that you have so much to give. You could go around and paint people's curbs. You could start babysitting. You could go work at McDonald's. You could, like, there's so many options that just seem less appealing, I would say, than the immediate instant gratification feeling of like, oh, I have this body, I have these breasts, I have this pussy, I can just give that away and then that'll pay my rent. It's like it's really a like an epidemic of selling yourself short, and not giving yourself credit for your own creativity and what you might be able to come up with. Everybody has a skill set, and even if we all share a certain skill set, like, everybody's going to have their own unique way of doing that, and there's nobody else that is you ever. Never will be, never was, not
And
is now.
as you mentioned, do you have ever been in a scary situation, like that you kind of like, holy shit, I'm risking my life here?
No, I would say and that's, that is a very privileged thing for me to be able to say, because coming from the industry, that is absolutely not the case for most women, and like, this is a statistic that should wake people up. Immediately when a woman steps into that industry, in whatever form, porn, stripping, escorting, doesn't matter, her chances of premature mortality, dying for no reason, immediately increases by 40%. Almost doubles her chance of being killed just by stepping into that industry. And that's through her own devices, through suicide, through depression, or through physical violence, through, whatever. And so it's like, we don't have to put ourselves in those situations in order to create. We have a fucking womb. We have the home of all things that are created on this planet. We're responsible for men and women's existence. Like, we need to learn how to harness that creativity and channel it into other ways that I think a lot of times we just don't know how to give ourselves credit for, to even open the door to in our minds, because we aren't empowered in that way. And so for me personally, the most like dangerous feeling situation was always just the actual strip club. It's such a horrible environment. There's not a single one that is high class enough to get out of this like, to be different than what I'm describing. It's super negative, very low density, low vibration, just so full of nastiness on every level, physical, emotional, spiritual, especially clubs that serve alcohol. why do you think they're called spirits? You know, like it's a place where you go to like have your life force energy just fucking drained from you in a number of ways. And so the toxicity in those environments is what had me leave the strip club and turn into just a full-time like escort prostitute, because I couldn't take the environment anymore. So for me, that was the most dangerous, that was the most toxic feeling. I accrued a lot of physical trauma in my breasts especially, and my body from men all day long, grabbing, touching, trying to put parts of myself in their mouth, and I'm like pushing them away, and like that kind of altercation all day long. And so the strip club was the most violent place for me, I would say.
Wow. If you could give a piece of advice for a man that has the power to change that financially for one woman and one woman only, what would you say to them?
I would say to stop seeing it as power, because that just continues to promote the dynamic that it's like this, that he has something to offer her that she can't offer herself, you know? And so it's like starting to shift the narrative around it, that like, how do I want to contribute to a shared life with somebody versus what can I give in exchange for what I want to get? Again, it's just that transactional versus team player. Like, what are you willing to invest, not just financially, but like, that's what I was thinking when you said the thing about the laundry and like paying for a maid. What if it wasn't financial contribution? What if the person was like, oh, okay, I know you worked a lot of hours today. Like, what if I come over? Like, you could leave a key under the mat. What if I come over and I'll do the laundry while you're working today? You know, what if it was just acts of service? What if it was their emotional investment? What if it was their coming over, can I rub your feet when you get off work today? I know you're on them all day. You know, like contributing to taking the weight off the other person's plate in both directions, I think is one of the most important things that has to be going on if the relationship is going to work.
Hannah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for this. And I just wanted to give the platform and one more space for you to share for people that wants to come and work with you. So you can take now the time before we end this episode to let them know.
Awesome. And thank you so much. Like, I love you so much. I love having this conversation, like more than I can tell you. So yeah, my last piece of advice I would say is, if you are a woman or a man, I have a group program, and they are separate group calls, men and women separate, so you can really speak freely. And I hope I've been clear that I'm an advocate for both sides here. Like, there's not a single one I see as more wrong or more hurt or more whatever than the other, because it's a collective healing that we need to move forward. And so if you are interested in healing, because that is the only way things are ever going to change, changing your frequency so that what you're a match for changes, then I would say get a hold of me. My group programs are incredibly accessible, less than $10 a day just to get started, and you have access to me the entire time. Group calls every single week. You get a private session to start so I can really understand you, and direct access to me for as long as you're enrolled. And so it's a really great supportive environment, because sometimes people are wary because they're like, oh, I don't know these people. I don't want to be vulnerable on this group call because I don't know this person. They're going to judge me. But that's the point. Like, allowing yourself to start to be seen in your trauma, in your pain, in what you do want to claim for yourself. It creates so much community healing that we as humans are wired for. And it allows you to start to take those layers off so you can really create the life and the relationships that you want. So you can DM me on Instagram. I also just offer like a la carte sessions if you ever want that. And my higher group or individual private, like one-on-one coaching, true one-on-one is always available as well. So DM me. That's where you can reach me, Hannah Spanky on Instagram. Or if you're not on Instagram, you can email me, hannahspanky@gmail or hannahspanky@yahoo, both. And last thing I'll say is, if you are in a relationship and you want to either reignite it because things are crumbly a little bit and you want them to be better, or you want to create the standard in your new relationship for how you want it to be sustained, come to Hawaii with me. Come on the couples retreat that I'm hosting in May. It's going to be amazing. And it's going to be really unique because you won't have to choose between like fun vacation and doing the deep intimacy work that needs to be done. You know, it's not like, should we go to Mexico or should we do therapy? this is both. So come join me, and you can still save $222 off of your total price now if you join before February for early bird pricing. So get a hold of me if that interests you, and that's
awesome.
it for me.
Awesome. I love that. Wow. Aloha.
Aloha. Yes.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I appreciate your presence in here, and I also appreciate all you that's been listening. Don't forget to subscribe here on Spotify or all platforms that you are not in yet. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back next week with more of Sex in Toronto City for you guys.
Bye.